This episode is brought to you by HASA. Liquid is clearly better. Liquid chlorine is the highest purity, works immediately, has no added cyanuric acid or calcium, and it will leave your pool safe, clean, and clear. And by the bottom feeder professional grade battery powered vacuum system. It sucks to clean pools, so cleaning pools sucks less. Get $100 off with code DVB100.
This episode is brought to you by Skimmer, the #1 pool service software in North America. With Skimmer, you can streamline your schedule, grow your revenue, and keep your customers coming back with 5-star service. Whether you're a one-person operation or an established team, Skimmer is your partner in success. Visit getskimmer.com/poolguy to try Skimmer for free for 30 days.
The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show.
Hi, welcome to the Pool Guy Podcast Show. In this episode, I'm going to answer some YouTube questions and expand on them. And I've been doing this for a while now, and this is volume 24. So I'll take a few questions that I recently received on YouTube, and I'll unpack them in more detail here. And I think you'll find the variety and also the answers helpful. Are you a pool service pro looking to take your business to the next level? Join the Pool Guy Coaching Program. Get expert advice, business tips, exclusive content, and get direct support. For me, I'm a 35-year veteran in the industry. Whether you're starting out or scaling up, I've got the tools to help you succeed. Learn more at swimmingpoollearning.com. This comment was kind of randomly posted on one of my pool pump reviews, and it says, I don't remember which video said to clean the inside pump debris with a screwdriver, but it worked and saved me $100 or $200. Thank you. Probably it saved the service call, so it did save quite a bit of money. And what he's referring to is, I probably have this in more than one video, but I show with the pump lid off, me spinning the impeller with a screwdriver to dislodge debris. Now, what are some signs that there's debris in the impeller and the pool's not operating properly? One of the telltale signs that you have a problem with debris impacting the impeller, causing it not to spin freely and powerfully enough to pull the water in, is that the pressure on your filter drops pretty low, sometimes in the 5 to 10 psi range, depending on your pump and filter configuration. And also you're going to see air through the pump lid, through the clear pump lid. You're going to see that the water is not filling up to the top. So in normal operation, the wet end of the pump or the pump pot area should be full of water to the top. You may have a small little air bubble here or there on top in some cases, but generally all that should be filled to the top with water. And if it's just halfway filled or 3/4 filled and the PSI has dropped on your filter, then this could mean that some debris got into the impeller. So the easiest way to do this without taking the back of the motor off and taking everything off so you can inspect the impeller, which sometimes may be necessary, but in 90-something% of the cases, I would say it's not necessary. Sometimes little pellet debris gets stuck in the impeller on the sides and doesn't spin freely, but mainly it's debris in the impeller. So what you want to do is turn off the system, make sure it's not going to come back on. It's really important that you don't have the pump come back on while you're doing this. It could damage the impeller and it could hurt yourself as well. Take the pump lid off with the pump off, take the pump basket out, and you'll see that, and normally when you take the pump lid off and take the pump basket out, you're going to hear the water kind of gurgling as air is getting sucked back into the system. So you kind of hear it going gurgle, gurgle. But if there's something stuck in the impeller, that was a pretty terrible gurgle, by the way, it's not going to make that noise. So what you want to do is take a screwdriver. You can also create like a tool out of a hanger, metal hanger, but a screwdriver, flathead screwdriver works best in my opinion. Just stick it in there and kind of spin the impeller rapidly with the screwdriver, and you're going to see some debris dislodge, hopefully, and then you're going to hear that gurgling sound. Let me try it again. So that's a little bit better, but not 100%. And then you're going to see kind of the water drop down, and that's pretty much an indication that it's clear of debris. Fill it back up, put the pump basket in, fill it back up with water, put the lid back on, turn it on, and usually that pump will fill up with water again completely. The PSI will be back to normal and you're good to go. So that's a little trick, and the signs or symptoms is poor flow, poor suction, and the PSI dropping on the gauge. And that means that something has gotten through the pump basket, through the skimmer basket actually, into the pump basket, through the pump basket, into the impeller, which is really easy for it to do, by the way. Any small debris will actually just get pulled right through the pump basket and thereby clogging it. And this is a simple, easy, and effective way to unclog the impeller. Here's one where the question isn't quite as important as the solution, but basically she had doubled the DE on accident. Someone had added DE to the filter after they cleaned it. She thought they didn't. She added it. And then so she took everything apart and cleaned the filter again, put it back together and turned the pump on, but it wasn't priming. So this happens a lot when you're cleaning a filter, and it does have something to do with the configuration of the pool equipment in some cases. If the pump and filter are pretty far from the skimmer, then this happens more often than not. I had a pool at one time where the pump was and the filter was about almost 50 yards away from the pool. It was a ridiculous setup. I don't recommend doing this, but of course you can use your pool, not hear the equipment, so that's a bonus, I guess, but it was really far away from the pool, maybe more like 30 yards, 50 yards might be an exaggeration. Whenever I clean this filter, it would be almost impossible to prime the pump, because what happens is that once air gets into that line, the water, and it's basically physics. You can't really pull the water with air there, because it's one of those things that, the pool line is supposed to be full of water entirely. If there's air in there, it just doesn't have enough pull or head power to pull the water at that point. That's why when you have an air leak, if you have a bad O-ring on your pump lid or there's water leaking from the top of the discharge, the pump has a hard time pulling water. When you have your manual vacuum connected or automatic cleaner, you're going to have the pool come on and kind of, suck air and then come on again and suck air. So the problem here is that she took the filter apart, put it back together, tried to get the pool started, and it just wasn't priming because obviously she had the filter lid off for a long time and the water drained down and air got into the skimmer line. So there are a couple things you can do, and depending on how your pool's set up, one of these two things is going to be effective. If you have an attached spa, which here in my area is like just about every pool, it's really easy to fix this problem by priming the pump from the spa. So what you want to do is turn the Jandy valve that's in front of the pump. If you have an automated system, go ahead and put it into spa mode. That's the easiest way to do it with the automated systems. And if you have just a regular Jandy valve, turn it to spa suction in front, and then turn on the pump, and it should prime up pretty fast. Now, of course, you already have the filter lid back on and everything's back together at this point. So just a little kind of backing up in this comment. She had taken the lid off and she put the lid back on, I should have said, and couldn't prime it. So start the pool up and it's going to start priming in spa mode. And since the spa line wasn't compromised during the filter cleaning, it should prime up really fast at that point. And so what you want to do once it primes up is slowly turn the Jandy valve back, the pool suction. But once you get air in there and it starts cavitating, turn it back to spa mode. And that way it primes up again fully. And do this a few times. And eventually, by turning it, you're going to turn it further and further each time. You're going to get the skimmer to prime, or the skimmer line, all the air out of there. And it should prime up from pool suction mode. The other thing, and then if you have a automated system, just click pool mode and then stop it, go back to spa mode. And that's kind of the same effect without having to manually flip the switch on the valves. You can do that as well. You can flip the switch on the Jandy valve into position 2. That'll put it in kind of manual mode and reverse the flow. But it's kind of complicated. So just go from spa to pool mode on the automated system until you get all the air out of there. Once you do it, you kind of get what I'm talking about here. It's not super complicated. It's not rocket science. Basically, using the spa line to prime it because it's not compromised. And then once you get the air out of the pool line, it should work fine. If there's no attached spa, I would simply get a drain bladder, attach it to a garden hose, turn on the garden hose, let the line fill up. What I like to do is take the pump lid off and see if the water is coming into the pump. Once you see that the water is coming into the pump from the garden hose, go ahead and turn the garden hose off, take out the drain bladder, turn on the pump, and more than likely it's going to fill up with water and get all the air out of there. So those are the two ways to do it. If you do run into a problem where you when you're cleaning the filter or have the pump lid off for a while, the air can get in the line and cause it not to. And the Pool Guy Podcast Show has teamed up with UPA to bring you affordable, reliable liability insurance starting at just $64 a month. Get up to $2 million in coverage, and the members of my coaching group get an even lower rate. Protect your business and your peace of mind. Sign up with UPA today by clicking the link in the podcast description. Prime. Here's the question on the Jandy Truclear cell. They have a 25,000 gallon pool. Should they get a Jandy Truclear even though it's rated for 35,000 gallons, or should they get something that's rated for a higher amount of salt? So the Jandy Truclear is rated for 35,000 gallons. It makes about 0.93 pounds of chlorine, just under 1 pound of chlorine per day. If you're running it 24 hours at full speed, it'll make about 1 gallon equivalent of liquid chlorine basically, which is sufficient for a 25,000 gallon pool in my opinion. Now, I used to always say you want to get a saltwater generator that's like twice the size of your pool, so you would want to get something rated for 45,000 gallons. And by the way, Jandy does have a new Truclear XL that's rated for 45,000 gallons. It makes 1.5 pounds of chlorine. It looks more like the AquaPure cell. Unfortunately, they call it the Truclear, but there's no clear top, so I guess it's the somewhat Truclear cell. And it's very similar to AquaPure. In fact, the unions are retrofittable to the AquaPure cell, and this is a bigger salt cell for a larger body of water. But I'll go back to what I used to say is always get a salt cell that's bigger so you can run it at less output and the salt cell will last longer. But one of my group members was on me on this. He's like, hey, that's a good idea, but the manufacturers aren't making really good salt cells anymore, and they're not lasting more than 4 years anyway, so why spend the money on a bigger salt cell when it's going to break down and not work after 4 years? And I kind of get his point. Back in the day when products were made with a lot more quality control, you could probably get 6 or 7 years out of a salt cell by running it at 50% output. But what he said is kind of true. The salt cells aren't made as well as they used to be. And so if you baby it at half output and you spend more money on a larger cell, it may not be worth it in the long run because it may just stop working after 4 years anyway, and you spent the extra money. What you want to probably do is maybe run this one here at 80% output and use up the life of the cell, because truthfully, the Truclear cell probably will last you 3 years anyway. That's kind of like the lifespan I'm getting out of them, and I wouldn't invest in a bigger cell cell. So the answer to this question is you can get away with just the standard Jandy Truclear in a 25,000 gallon pool. Just run it at 80% output basically. Run your pool for a long period of time so it reduces that chlorine, and don't really worry about getting an oversized cell necessarily, because they may not last as long as in theory they should last if they made them better than they're making them, if that makes sense. So yes, that'll work perfectly fine for your pool at 25,000 gallons. I could probably spend a whole podcast on this next question, but it's, does anyone have success with aftermarket parts like on Amazon? And this was for the Zodiac MX8 cleaner or MX8 Elite. And one thing about automatic cleaners is that some of them are what I call part hogs, where you have to change a lot of parts to keep them running. And the MX8 is one of those part hog cleaners, like the Hayward Navigator. And there are a lot of generic parts on Amazon for these cleaners. Now, my sources at Jandy tell me that as soon as one of these sellers goes up on Amazon with maybe diaphragms or tracks for the MX8, by the way, the MX8 doesn't have a diaphragm, but there are some Zodiac cleaners with a diaphragm and maybe some kind of other parts for the cleaners, they'll sue them or they'll contact their sources at Amazon and have those listings pulled down as soon as possible. It's definitely not an easy thing to keep up with. I'm on Amazon right now. There's a company called Eobomic, I guess that's how you pronounce it. They have an engine, and they have, of course, the tracks, the bearings that go with it, the drive shaft for $48. That's pretty cheap for the cleaner part. So, of course, that listing will probably be pulled down eventually. They actually have an entire tune-up kit for sale for $115. The company's name is Bonbo. And so those are like pure generic parts. They copied the Zodiac parts exactly the same. Now, if you wanted to buy the OEM parts from Zodiac, that same kit, by the way, that has like 4.7 stars, and it's $149 for the actual rebuild kit for the MX-8 versus the Bombo at $115 that has 2.7 stars. So it's probably not the same quality you're going to get from Zodiac. So I would assume that those listings will be pulled down eventually, but they are up there. And for every cleaner, there are these generic parts you're going to find out there. For the Hayward Navigator, there's a company called Attrack E-Part Store. They have the A-frame kit with the pods, by the way, which is a great deal at $48. So you're going to run into these. Now, are they as good as the OEM parts? Sometimes they are. The OEM ones are actually $73 for that same kit with the pods. So you're going to save, 20 or 30 bucks in some cases. Is it worth it? Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Now, the reason why your supplier doesn't sell them, if you're going to go to Pool Corp or Heritage, is because the manufacturers won't let them sell these generic parts. Only OEM parts are contracted by the manufacturer. Same thing like if you go to Honda, you can't buy generic parts at the Honda dealer. And the same thing with the manufacturers. They don't want generic parts being sold at these wholesale outlets. So you can get them on Amazon, of course. And they're kind of hit and miss, I would say. The diaphragms that they use for like the Zodiac cleaners are pretty good. I've used them before. They last almost as long as the original parts. These other parts, they're probably decent. So I wouldn't say that they're going to be the same as the OEM, but they're probably a pretty exact copy from overseas, and it's something that the manufacturers try to fight. And again, Polaris, Jandy, Zodiac, all the same company. They really fight this hard to get these parts pulled down right when they go up, because it does affect their bottom line. And it's not like they manufacture these cleaners so that they can sell parts. That's not the truth of it. The truth of it is that the more moving parts in the cleaner, the more parts are going to have to be replaced in the future. The only exception would be the Hayward Pool Cleaner, which was by a company called Poovernugan, and they made really robust parts. And he designed it so that the parts would not wear out as fast as other gear type cleaners. But the parts do wear out in a lot of cleaners just by the nature of them moving around the pool for 8 or 10 hours a day or 15 hours a day. And it's just the nature of the pool cleaner. The parts are going to wear out. Are these generic parts any good? Bottom line, some are good, some may not be good. You'll save some money. Some are worth it, some aren't. And if you can find the OEM parts and kind of bite the bullet and get them, I would probably lean towards that. But I'm not saying that these generic parts aren't any good, because sometimes they're an exact copy of the manufactured parts, and they do work really well. If you're looking for other podcasts, you can find those by going to my website. On the banner, there's a podcast icon where you can download over 1,700 podcasts there and listen to them at your leisure. You subscribe to my YouTube channel Monday through Friday. You also get a new episode Monday through Friday. And if you're interested in the coaching program that I offer, you can learn more at poolguycoaching.com. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Have a great rest of your week, and God bless. This episode is brought to you by HASA, providing products that deliver clean, healthy water for every aspect of everyday life. The bottom feeder battery-powered vacuum system, portable, powerful, and only weighs 12 pounds. And Skimmer. Get Skimmer, America's #1 pool service software. Podcast listeners can try Skimmer for free at getskimmer.com/poolguy.